There is something you are losing every single day without even realizing it. Not money, not opportunities, but your very own awareness and the deep sense of inner freedom. We keep thinking we still have time, that we still have the chance to start over, that we'll have another day to do what's right. But time makes no sound. It silently takes away each minute without warning, each meeting, each glance, each chance to forgive that might already have been the last. And then one day, you suddenly realize you've been living without ever truly living. Living in haste, living blindly, living by the expectations of others. This video won't give you a formula for wealth, nor teach you how to earn admiration. But if you stay until the end, you might walk away with something many people spend their whole lives trying to grasp. That you don't need to control the world. You only need to control yourself, the way you think, the way you act, the way you live today. Because every decision you make in this very moment could be the last chance you have to make it right. Number 1, each day is a final opportunity. There is a simple truth that most of us avoid thinking about. We will die, and we don't know when. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but certainly we will. There are no exceptions, no exemptions. Death is a blade suspended above each of our heads, not to threaten us, but to remind us, live with clarity before it's too late. Seneca once wrote, "We are dying every day. Every minute that passes is a part of life that we no longer possess." Yet many of us still live as if time were infinite, delaying what's important, putting off what must be done, and clinging to the hope that someday we'll begin anew. But someday is the most dangerous lie we often tell ourselves. We once knew a man, successful, decisive, who said he worked day and night so that his child would never lack anything. But that child grew up with only brief messages, canceled appointments, and dinners without a father. Each time the child asked to play, the father would reply, "I'm busy today. Let's do it this weekend." That weekend never came. A sudden accident took the child away. At the funeral, the man sat in silence in front of the small chair, his eyes empty. Later, he said, "I spent my whole life preparing for the future, and didn't realize that the future no longer waited for me." No one teaches us to live as if tomorrow might be the last time we can hug those we love, but death, in its bitterest way, will. In Stoic philosophy, death is not something to avoid. It is something we should reflect on every day. Marcus Aurelius, the great emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." This philosophy is called memento mori. Remember that you will die, but not to become pessimistic. Rather, to live with awareness. When we realize that every conversation might be the last, every glance we share could be the last, every opportunity to love, to forgive, to help might never come again, then we begin to live differently. We no longer waste time on the trivial, no longer hesitate to say thank you, to say sorry, or to move toward what truly matters. Because we understand that each day we live is a day we've been given. We should ask ourselves, how are we living? Are we living each day as if it matters? Or are we letting ourselves be swept away by trivial tasks, unfamiliar expectations, and fears that serve no purpose? We fear many things: failure, being misunderstood, not being perfect. But the most terrifying thing is to live without truly living. When we don't know what we're living for, we'll be swept away by anything, by deadlines, by the gaze of others, by social media. Meanwhile, death quietly draws closer, hour by hour, minute by minute. And the good news is, we don't need to wait for perfect conditions to live with purpose. We don't need more money, more time, or more confidence. We only need the present, this very body, this very moment. As Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." Living with purpose does not have to mean doing something grand. It could simply mean waking up each morning and knowing clearly, what am I moving toward? What is truly worthy of the limited time I have? And if today were my last day, am I living it right? If you want to practice Stoicism in a simple way, you can start with 1 minute of memento mori contemplation every morning. Ask yourself, if today were my last, what must I do? Who do I need to call? What task am I postponing, even though I know how much it matters? And then choose one important thing, and do it today. Don't wait. Don't aim for perfection. Just act. Because action is the strongest cure for procrastination and meaninglessness. We often think that the more time we have, the more meaningful life will be. But Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. It is precisely because time is limited that each moment becomes sacred. A flower blooms for only a few days, and thus we cherish it more. A human life lasts just a few decades, and thus to live rightly, truthfully, and purposefully is what gives it value. We cannot control death, but we can control how we live, each day, each choice, each action. Don't wait until death is near to start living, because we may already be closer to our final moment than we know. Are we ready for today? Don't let it pass like every other day, because this might be the day we never get back. If you are still here, still reading these lines, take a few seconds to close your eyes and imagine. If today were your last day on earth, how would you live? You don't need a perfect answer. You only need to start living as if every minute were a gift, not a guarantee. Number 2, don't dwell on the pain. Use that energy to transform it. There is a quiet habit that pulls us away from inner freedom, the habit of constantly retelling the stories of how we've been hurt. Someone once insulted us. We tell the story. A relationship ended. We tell the story. We were treated unfairly. We tell the story. Each time we recount it, we believe we are releasing the pain. But in fact, we are reinforcing the role of the victim. We're not just remembering the pain, we're rehearsing it, allowing it to take root more deeply into our identity. At some point, we no longer remain the person who was betrayed. We become the person who is always talking about having been betrayed. And when that is repeated long enough, it begins to define who we are. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to us that causes suffering, but how we perceive what happens." A Stoic does not deny pain, but they do not allow pain to become their identity. Seneca, a father who lost his only son, grieved like anyone would. But he did not wallow. Instead of endlessly speaking of the loss, he wrote to Lucilius, "We cannot choose our circumstances, but we can choose how we respond. Sadness may enter our hearts, but we must not let it take up permanent residence." That is an important reminder. Rather than retelling how we were hurt, we should tell the story of how we rose above that hurt. Instead of fixating on what others did to us, we should focus on how we refused to let them destroy our spirit. Sometimes, retelling becomes less of a sharing and more of a cycle. The more we repeat it, the more we weaken ourselves. We once knew a man. After his divorce, he was nearly lost. Whenever he met someone, he would bring up the same old story. She changed, she left, he sacrificed so much. He told it so often that people stopped asking. One day, someone said to him, "That story may be true, but it no longer helps you. You're making yourself weaker every time you tell it." At first, he resisted, but then he grew quiet. Eventually, he began writing a morning journal, not filled with bitterness, but with a single question. What do I need to do today to live better than yesterday? 6 months passed. He returned with a calmer gaze. He said, "I still remember the past, but it no longer has power over me." That is true strength, not forgetting, but refusing to let the past steer the wheel of your life. We don't have to pretend we've never been hurt, but we can choose not to let that pain dictate how we live from now on. On this journey of life, we can choose to be the one who endlessly tells stories of pain, or the one who transforms it. Because pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. When we stop recounting our wounds, we reclaim agency. When we direct energy into action instead of complaint, we step into a new level of awareness. Marcus Aurelius, who lost his wife, his children, and lived through war and plague, wrote, "We were born not to be safe, but to live with dignity." The Stoic does not live to seek pity. They live to prove that even amidst adversity, a human being can remain noble. And so can we. Number 3, don't let others' opinions define who we are. There is an invisible kind of shackle, so subtle that most of us don't realize we're wearing it. The obsession with how others perceive us. It makes no sound, yet it slowly erodes our inner freedom. We move through life without choosing our own direction. We speak, but are unsure if those words are truly ours. We live, yet feel like we're acting out a role that doesn't belong to us. All because of one persistent fear. What will people think? They might think we're inadequate, clumsy, or lacking strength. And so, unconsciously, we begin crafting a more acceptable version of ourselves. More polite, more likable, less sharp-edged. But the price we pay for that is the gradual loss of our inner strength. The more we hide our true selves, the more we lose our internal power. Epictetus once called this the price of freedom, trading away inner peace for fleeting approval. Those who live with intention don't act to gain praise. They act because it is right. They do not need others to agree in order to stay true to their principles. They don't live off applause. They live with a clear understanding of what is right in each moment. We cannot control every opinion the world may cast upon us, but we can control how we respond. When we care too much about others' judgments, we constantly self-censor. We stop saying what needs to be said. We stop declining what we don't want. We stop choosing paths that diverge. And eventually, we find our lives becoming dull, exhausting, no longer our own. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Others may judge, but I am not obligated to accept their judgments. I only need to ask myself, did I live today as a decent human being?" That question may sound simple, but it is liberating. Because truth does not reside in how others see us. It lives in every action, every choice we make when no one is watching. We do not need to become a version of ourselves that makes others comfortable. We need to become someone we can look at in the mirror without shame. Public opinion shifts as easily as the wind. But if we want to live with grounded clarity, we must stand like a stone amid crashing waves, unshaken by noise, undistracted by applause. Only when we no longer hunger for acceptance do we begin to live truthfully. And when we live truthfully, what needs to come will come. Number 4, focus on what we can control. Life is like a rainstorm. Some days it falls gently like mist. Other days it pours down like a flood. We may not like the rain. We may complain, blame, or even feel angry. But none of that will change the weather. The sky does not bend to our thoughts. But we still have one choice: to shrink beneath the shelter or to walk forward with the coat we prepared. That is the spirit of Stoic philosophy, a clear line between what is within our control and what is not. Epictetus once emphasized, "We are not disturbed by events but by our perception of those events." A purposeful person does not try to command the river. They learn how to row. They don't waste time arguing with the wind. They adjust their sails, and so, whether the wind is favorable or not, they keep going. Yet most of us forget this simple truth. We try to change others instead of changing ourselves. We cling to what is leaving us, blame what is already gone. We worry about a future that hasn't arrived, and rage at a past we can no longer touch. And in our attempt to control everything, we lose the only thing we truly can control: our thoughts, our choices, our actions. We cannot control whether others love or judge us, but we can choose how we treat them. We cannot control the outcome, but we control our effort. We don't know how long we'll live, but we can choose how to live with the time we have left. When we return to what is ours to govern, we reclaim our power. This is not resignation, it is clarity. It is maturity. Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of war, loss, and betrayal, would remind himself each morning, "Today, I will meet selfish, ungrateful, jealous people, but that is their nature. I will not let it stain what is human in me. Others may wound us. The world may be unfair. But if we keep our dignity, our reason, and our resolve, then the core of who we are remains intact. Like the one who rows through stormy waters, knowing they cannot command the sea, but still rows on, because that is their role. When the storm rises, the weak will scream, the wise will lower their sail. Who we choose to become, that is the one power no one can take from us. Number 5, live simply and focus on what matters. One of the greatest paradoxes of our time is this: the more we have, the more empty we feel. Material abundance does not guarantee inner fulfillment. We live among endless choices, yet feel lost, constantly connected, yet increasingly unable to hear ourselves. That is the cost of excess, not just of things, but of information, expectations, invitations, and roles. Piece by piece, these distractions pull our attention away from what truly matters. And in the end, it's not time that gets eroded, it's our ability to live with focus. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his journal, "Do not let your mind be pulled apart by trivial things." He understood, what steals your focus steals your life. Living simply does not mean rejecting all comforts. It is an intentional act, choosing to keep only what truly holds value. It means daring to ask, is this necessary? Is this relationship healthy? Does this job bring meaning? Does this schedule help me live mindfully? The Stoic does not seek to have more. They learn to let go, because they know that mental clarity is more vital than external variety. As life is simplified, step by step, deeper things begin to emerge: gratitude, discipline, clarity, dignity. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be willing to be seen as foolish." Because those who live simply are not looking for approval. They are looking for honesty with themselves. Simplicity is not just a practical choice. It is the foundation of wisdom. For without a quiet mind, there can be no sound judgment. When we know what truly matters, we stop running in every direction. We stop being scattered by endless advice. We stop living under the expectations of the world. We begin to live with depth, not just speed. Not doing everything, but doing the right thing. Not playing many roles, but holding on to one core value. The wise do not rush. They move slowly, yet surely. Not because they have less to do, but because they have refined what truly deserves their time. In a noisy world, to live simply is an act of resistance, not against anyone, but to preserve what is essential within ourselves. And if you're still here, if you've stayed with this video until this very moment, then maybe something inside you has begun to shift. Perhaps it's a question, perhaps a sigh, perhaps a quiet sense, as if you've just stepped out of a fog you once mistook for light. Don't let that fade. Don't let it be buried by the same old routines. Hold on to that moment of clarity, because it is a gift no one can give you, except yourself. We can't change the past. We can't predict the future. But we can begin, right now, to live one day that truly matters. And if there's something you need to do, someone you need to forgive, or a step you've long postponed waiting for the perfect time, maybe that time is today. Not because you're fully ready, but because you still have the power to choose again. And there is nothing more precious than that.